So this is a panel on a path to multiplying your stores. We thought it'd just be interesting for some of the tribes that we know that are growing and ones that have multiple stores. The decisions that they made when they decided to scale up from just how they started up until kind of where they're at now. So if the panel wants to introduce themselves one at a time and then kind of introduce your enterprise and how many stores you have, and then we'll get to some questions, and then we'll go to Q&A after the questions.
Sam Roark from the Nisqually tribe. We have currently 7 stores and 2 in development and 1 raise and rebuild.
Okay, Frank Black, retail director for the Suquamish tribe. As I mentioned this morning, we currently have 3 full convenience store, gas stations, 1 smoke shop, and the full convenience store gas station opening next month. And what else was it?
That's it.
Okay.
All right, good afternoon. Yate William McCabe, Yanishe, Touchin in Nishle, Ashe Bashichin, Slash Dashe, Aro, Maedashkiri Dashanale, Akutero Dene Nishle. Good afternoon. My name is William McCabe. I go by Bill McCabe. We always introduce ourselves in our language so that we have related to anybody in the room. So if anyone's from the red running into Water Clan, we're related somehow. And so I serve as the vice president for the Navajo Nation Oil and Gas Company. We are a vertically integrated energy company, upstream, midstream, and downstream. And I'm currently oversee the downstream operations. We have 6 C stores. 6 C stores. We're partnering with one of our sister business entities to make it 7 C stores, and we're currently building an 8th C store along a freeway exit. And then we've got funding pending with the Navajo Nation for 2 more C stores. So we're rapidly expanding our footprint on the Navajo Nation. And so we can discuss that as time goes on. Thank you.
All right. So I have a couple categories I think we're gonna try and cover before. One is strategy and growth. Another category is operational decisions, financial considerations, marketing and customer engagement. The big one for us too is leadership and staffing, and tribe and economic development roles in those decisions. So my first question to the panel is, what was the pivotal moment in your business where you guys decided to scale or expand your operations from when you initially started?
Well, for us, the driving force is our new CEO. And obviously, when he takes a look at our past performances, we realize that the cigarette category was declining, and fuel sales gallonage that generates the tax revenue was kind of stagnant. So his big push is we need to find locations on higher traffic flows to generate more tax revenue for the tribe.
The Navajo Reservation is 160 miles east to west and 130 miles north to south, something like 26,000 square miles. And so given the large expanse that we occupy and the need for convenience store services, that's kind of was the impetus for having multiple locations. We serve a lot of rural areas, rural reservation. I mean, we're really getting out there now to where we are almost like a trading post, and we'll serve just necessary goods along with fuel. And a lot of times the community will come to our store, get $5, $10 worth of gas, maybe some flour, and then move on to the next store where it might be a little cheaper, and then all the way into the city where then they can fill up, and they kind of reverse the process coming back. But really it's the need to serve the communities. And then we're looking to expand to, again, higher volume, higher revenue generating locations. So we are actually on 3 stores struggling to be revenue positive. And so we rely on the bigger stores, on the more traffic related areas, particularly along the tourist routes, to carry the business unit. So that we're looking at how do we look at, better locations and larger facilities. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say from us perspective from Nisqually Markets, we came across an inflection point, and in business, I'm going to look at it from more of a business perspective. They used a different model for why they did what they did, but eventually every business comes to a point where you either got to grow or you got to cut. And I never want to cut. I always want to grow. Our enterprise, Medicine Creek Enterprise, has gotten so large that if we don't grow, we're going to have to cut. And I know I said that twice, but I want to make my point. In a business, if you can't expand your footprint, the only way to make more money is to save money somewhere. And eventually you start saving so much money that now your service is not as good as it should be. Your products aren't as good as they should be, and eventually you die. So either you grow or you die. So obviously there's steps that need to be taken if you want to grow. A, can you grow? Do you have the capital to grow? Do you have the footprint to grow? And do you have the business savvy to grow? So for us, we answer a lot of those questions, and we quickly realize that we need to grow. So that's kind of where we see it from our standpoint. I think everybody in this room, I know most of you, there's a lot of my proteges in here that work for me over the years, and I've worked for several tribes, and they've all come across the same, an inevitable answer at some point. You just can't make any more money with what you have and where you are because you need to grow. So that's kind of how we see it.
But just to follow up on that a little bit, like Bill said and Sam said, how big of a role does on reservation, off reservation locations play? Because we know location is everything. Is it something that the reservation is big enough where you can just build on other parts of it, or is it something where you guys have to go off reservation and look at putting in land in trust for fee or non-fee?
Well, again, we have a very large expanse of trust land, and so we're still looking to better serve the communities within the exterior boundary of the Navajo Reservation. I might add too that, again, the Navajo Nation Oil and Gas Company is a vertically integrated company. We have an upstream business unit. It's our exploration production. We drill for oil, produce oil, and a midstream business unit where we pipeline that oil to a refinery, and then downstream is our retail operation. And our bread and butter obviously is the oil and gas production. 15,000 barrels a day at $70 a barrel, it adds up really fast. And so the downstream business unit is almost an afterthought in our organization. However, it is really the face of our company. The community knows us through our convenience stores, our brand, our Navajo Petroleum, our Running Horse logo. That's how they know Navajo Oil and Gas Company. They don't know us by a drilling rig. They don't know us by a pipeline. They don't know us by any other activity outside of what we do on the C-store level. So we try to represent our company through that branding, of which I've learned a lot about today. I don't know where Ernie went off, but man, I'm excited about getting back and trying to get something going on our downstream side that we just don't have in place right now. But again, trying to serve the community within the reservation boundaries, there are a lot of small pockets of activity that we really would like to serve. But again, how do we do so economically? So I'm looking at, kind of a micro store design. And I'm also at the same time looking at what does the future C-store look like? You got all these EV chargers, you got hydrogen dispensers coming along. I'm starting to look at what the future C-store is all about, and I think maybe this AI might help me with some of those answers. But anyway, long-winded answer. I'll pass it over to the mic here.
No.
I would say most, again, in this area, most tribes, as far as on reservation locations, are pretty much maxed out, just due to the space. But being creative, looking at trade routes and, and historical trade routes and, hey, our people traded on these lines. You can find creative ways to say, hey, this area right here, we believe is in our boundary, and, obviously go through the trust process with the BIA and get it cleared. I would say make sure you have all your ducks in a row. One word or one phrase on an application can stall you for a while. But just, do your due diligence, feasibility studies, things like that. There's never enough data. I don't think you could ever say you have too much data on a site, because someone's always going to ask you a question that wasn't in the first packet. So just do your due diligence and speak. I would encourage you also to speak with your council, your cultural representative and things like that, and just ask questions, and see if this is something that, your tribe and your community wants to do. And, usually the answer is yes, if your heart's in the right place. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
Oh, so the question is, how long does it take for property to get put into trust, and tell us how he's doing it? What's the magic?
I defer this answer to Jennifer Hines, our deputy CEO. Jennifer? Sure. We can get you a mic, yeah. I cannot legally say, I'm sorry. It's a trade secret. We got it done yesterday.
Yeah.
Lies.
Did you see me with the big duffel bag yesterday? There wasn't like toys in there. Yeah.
So I'm Jennifer Hines, Deputy CEO for Madison Creek Enterprise Corporation. So first of all, to answer the question, just in general, for retail, non-gaming, you can anticipate without any, you're always going to have those things you don't anticipate, environmental items like that. But without that, just as a basis, you're looking at 9 to 12 months for retail non-gaming. If you're associated at all with gaming, you're looking at 3 to 5 years to get it in. So that's the answer to the first question. The second answer is, and Sam kind of touched on this, but do your studies. Make sure you have that data before you start applying. Don't wait. Don't guess. Don't use a study that's 5 or 10 years old. Update things, and make sure that you have established relationships with the people in that chain of decision. And I don't mean at the tribal level, state level and federal level. Establish relationships with folks. Ask them questions. They work for you. They work for the tribes. Ask them questions, make them give you answers. If you're filling out an application to submit, work with those folks to make sure, hey, this one piece on this application, we've gotten stuck on that before. We're not real sure what you're looking for. Sit down with us and explain it. Or this is what we're talking about putting in something. Is this what you're looking for? Like, ask them those questions. Communication goes a long way. And then again, be really diligent about how you are describing your project, because one sentence that confuses somebody sitting in Washington, D.C. will have something kicked back, and we may or may not speak from experience. We'll have something kicked back and they say, oh, we misunderstood that when you first sent it because you really didn't word that very well. So now we need you to go back and do these 3 things before we can approve it. So just be very thoughtful and deliberate. I'm going to push it again. If you need to figure out how to word something, pull up AI. Have it give you samples. This is what I'm looking for. Please reword it. Go through it. Find the one That's what I'm saying right there. That's what I'm saying. This is a C store. It's going to be very different to someone sitting in DC than, well, this is a C store hooked onto a marijuana store sitting across from a casino, right? If you don't give them those details, they're gonna either, it's just gonna cause you issues, and it causes delays. And the biggest thing is we've already got a delay because it's governmental process. You want to minimize those. Yeah.
Good, Cameron? So caveat is, yes, we can get it done quickly, but you better have all your ducks in a row.
Quickly.
And I mean, like, before, like, the election.
True.
So we have experienced that, not where we were utilizing it, but where a prior owner had a use designation as something other than what we were going to use it. So we have an experience where we've switched our use of the property. But we have had that experience where we've purchased property and the use was different. And again, that's where it goes back to that, be really deliberate about how you're explaining that in your application. You can't just put, this used to be a dry cleaner, which is a horrible example because that's an environmental nightmare. So don't buy those. But but you can't just say this used to be that and, oh, we're going to throw a store on. You have to be, they're looking for use. So you have to be very deliberate about saying, here's the historical whatever from other owners. We are using it as this is our vision of this property, and make sure you detail out that vision. Yes. Oh, because you've already gotten into trust. I have not had that experience yet.
Does anybody
I
in
was
the
gonna say,
audience?
but I would open that up. Does anyone
Anybody?
here have an experience with that?
You're alone, Cameron. Sorry. Yeah.
Right. Yep. And I would go back again. Like you see, it's not a typical experience. I promise you it's happened a lot of times. One, reach out to the network, right? We were talking about this earlier, and I say this to people all the time. We compete with each other, right? Anyone who owns C-stores in Washington State. But we back each other and we help each other and we support each other. That's what TICS is about. So reach out to folks around the state, around in the organization, but then further build those relationships up with the people making those decisions, and always remember they work for you, because they don't always present themselves that way. So make them sit down with you. They have reps all over the United States. Make them send someone out, bring you out, whatever it takes to sit down and say, I need to understand how this works. Here's the roadblocks we're hitting. Someone needs to sit down with us and walk us through that, because that is what your job is.
All right. That's my deputy CEO over there. Just good job. So everyone up here on the panel here has multiple stores, and a lot of new ones in the works. So how did your guys' tribe economic development strategy align with the decision to grow the gas station business? So I guess I'm trying to say, like, did you guys always mean to have multiple? Was it a strategy, like, to grow to 8, to grow to 5, to grow to 10?
I would say yes.
Um,
One's never enough.
Well, I'm just like, for example, I know Nisqually, when MCC was first incorporated, it was really called the Nisqually Board of Economic Development, called it InBed. And the whole plan for InBed was to be cigarettes and fuel. And the initial plan, economic development plan for InBed was to surround JBLM with tribal gas stations and fuel stations. That's why the Nisqually Reservation is actually it's a small reservation in general. There's two gas stations on it. They're about a mile apart from each other, but outside that, everything Nisqually does is in trust off reservation. So the economic development plan that the tribe had initially was surround JBLM, all the main gates, and be an option for soldiers and those surrounding neighborhoods. First option off the base. So that's why you see it in Lakewood right off McCord. You see it on the backside of Frederickson off Eastgate and the backside of Spanaway Loop. You see those. So like with those kind of strategies in mind, is this something that Suquamish or the Navajo had when they were growing, like a plan to attack the rural areas, to go to areas with higher traffic? Is it something that you can give advice to tribes that want to expand? Like where should they look?
For my part, I'm not really privy to what the plan. I don't even know if we have an economic development department. It's all primarily based right now on the driving force of our new CEO. But I do know that he's looking at historical homelands and areas again with the higher traffic potential. And he's wanting to stay close to the reservation, but I think right now our farthest out would be Fort Orchard. And that's, all I've been privy to and that's like the third store out. So.
Do you have anything to add there, Bill?
The Navajo Nation has a multifaceted economy. We have gaming. We have a lot of tourist activity, hospitality, of course, our energy business. And so really our C-store development largely is driven by the need within the communities. I mentioned this. How do we serve that need? There are a number of non-Navajo owned C-stores on the reservation. I would love to see Navajo Nation Oil and Gas Company take those over. I asked our council, how did that happen? Right. And they never answer. But but ultimately, I'd like to see that. I mean, again, we've been all exposed to non-native activity on our reservations, largely to the detriment of our reservation and community, at least at Navajo, largely so. And now we are learning and have the expertise and competency and even financial wherewithal to exercise our own sovereignty as we see it for economic development and a sustainable economy. So that's really our driver. Where does the C-store fit in that? And it's really a community service. So how do we best provide that service to the community? Oh, that's me. Hit the bottom one. I'm bit mining. So every day I gotta, sorry, it's going up. And so I'd like to see, so what beyond fuel and in-store goods, do we look at slot machines in we're not a really big gaming tribe. We have 4 gaming facilities that aren't really well positioned, even though we have this large land base where we would put a gaming operation isn't really the best, but so it generates revenue. But how do we enhance the experience as we learned today? How do we enhance the experience to our community and provide the goods and services that are necessary for that community? And I was talking to Marsha, is it Marsha? earlier today. Yeah, we're competing with each other, but you know, you back out far enough and it's really us against them. You know, the non tribal C-stores and other economic activity. How do we take advantage? I mean, we have a competitive advantage built in with, you know, with our sovereign status. How do we take advantage of that, even at a micro level? And I say micro level with a C-store versus some of the macro activity that goes on with our nation. You know, timber. I think a lot of timber happens around here. Probably hatchery. You know, that's probably far more lucrative processes for our economies. You know, along with what we do. So. But yeah, just the expansion is, again, how do we serve the community? What's best? What do we, and what products are, what that fulfills that goal there? So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
No, good. I think in the spirit of like trying to grow your business and grow stores, and I think this is probably a pain point for everyone, but how do you guys tackle your leadership strategies and implement like a smooth transition to new businesses? Is there in your leadership pipeline?
I'll answer that. I'm a firm believer in teaching everybody that works for me everything I know. If you want information, if you want to learn, just hang out with me. I don't hide anything. I mean, Ed can speak to that. Patrick, Lisa, Isaiah's here. You know, I want to share my knowledge because I believe that not only can I help you grow, but one day you're probably going to know more than I know. And I might need to ask that question to you when I get older. You know, I might not be as savvy in my elder years, but you always want to have that pipeline and keep your ears out and look and things. I mean, I don't want to call out Patrick again, but Patrick was the ICC clerk at in Chehalis at Store 3. And I knew I had a management issue there with personnel, and I had my eye on him just because I watched and listened and saw something that maybe somebody else didn't see. And I said, you know, that guy, I'm going to earmark this guy. You know, take him under my wing. You know, always be on the lookout for that because you never know when your talent's either going to get, you know, taken from you or they may move on or things like that. You know, the old saying, good folks are hard to find. It's even worse today because someone's always going to be out there to one up you. If you're great at what you do, you're going to get offers all the time, but engage them. And a lot of people will, may not agree with me on this, but I think there's value in teaching what you know to the people that work for you. I think that that's more important to them at some point than them leaving and going to get more money. A lot of times people will jump into a job and, you know, they say, hey, I got experience in this. And they get there and they really can't do the job because they don't have the knowledge. So I would say always teach and keep your ears out and watch. But you got to be present to do that too. You can't do that from the office. So, you know, get out in the field and watch.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I totally am a believer that when I'm on vacation, I don't want calls to have to do. I want somebody that can already handle those. So my personal philosophy, and this is one I've been passing on to the site managers, is find that individual that is showing interest, showing ambition, and just sit down and talk to them and say, you know what, if you're wanting to move up, I can't give you that position or that raise right now, but if you're willing to do some extra work and prove that you can handle it, when the opportunity comes, we'll definitely put you in there. And so it's building that depth of training so that at any one time, if, you know, something happens and a manager disappears, that assistant manager should already know the manager's job and be able to step up. In the same way, you know, I tell the managers, if you don't want to get phone calls on your days off and when you're on vacation from the store, train your assistants and your leads to handle those problems and get that depth of experience going.
I report to the CEO of the company, who reports to our board of directors, who reports to our shareholders. So we're 100% owned by the Navajo Nation. So they're our sole shareholder, but they have shareholder representatives, members of council, 5 of them. And when we have these meetings, none of them understand a drilling rig or a seismic survey or a long seam weld in a pipeline, but they all know how to pump gas, right? And so the board meetings, we go over upstream, downstream, it gets to the midstream, and it gets to the downstream, and it goes on forever. So there's always somebody who wants to or thinks they know how better to do this. And there I take in everything. But then so I wrestle with that. But on the flip side, my reports and each of the stores, with all the stores currently are managed by Navajo women. And do they know their business? And I yes, absolutely. And when I took over the responsibility of the downstream operation, I gave them more authority. I said, listen, you know your stores best. You make your schedules. You know what product. If it's a big expense, let me know. We'll talk about it. Other than that, I delegated the authority to them, and they loved it. They absolutely love having that responsibility. I guess the previous supervisor, they didn't have that. They didn't trust them. I don't know. I have full trust in my employees. So, and it's like that. I can go on vacation and know that these stores are being run properly. We're always about succession planning. Who's going to be next, at the stores. And so I do have one probably concern that we probably have more employees per store than I think your average C store. So we've got probably about 8 employees, even 9 employees per store. And I think that's really the compensation on that line item on OpEx, that compensation line item is really heavy. I am not going to reduce or get rid of. There's no way. I want to expand, right? But I don't know whether to look at it, kind of reduce it through attrition. But this is how we've run this business for quite a while now. And I think we'll just kind of let it continue as so. Just a little more background on me. I'm a petroleum engineer, and I've worked in the upstream sector of the oil and gas industry my entire career, 40 years. And it was when during COVID, the downstream was cruising along up until COVID, and we lost money for the first time. And then the following year lost even more, double what we lost during COVID. The Navajo Nation shut down completely, and that's our consumer base. And so when we were in the midst of that second year of losses, I was helping out the team who was running it at the time. I go, well, let me help. I'm a numbers guy, right? Let me help out. Next thing I know, I'm vice president of the downstream operation. So as I mentioned to a gentleman at lunch, I go, I used to drill holes 2 miles into the earth. Now I sell Twinkies. And so, but it's still part of the business, downstream business, but it's a challenge. I used to sign AFEs for $100,000, $500,000, $1 million. And now I am just scrapping for pennies, right? Just scrapping for pennies. If I can get a nickel out of something, but it's a numbers game. And that's what I was telling our council. It's a numbers game. That's what I was telling. We need to expand. It's not a social program that we've got going on here. No, this is a revenue generating. I employ 80 Navajos. That's a big deal on a reservation that has high unemployment, 60% unemployment. We're providing good jobs. I try to be higher than the minimum wage at McDonald's or any of the fast food places that they elsewise could go. So just put a lot of trust in our team. Let them make their decisions. Know that they can come to me and ask questions and even make mistakes. Okay, let's try it a different way next time. But we're doing the best we can, and we just want to get better. And I really appreciate the invite by Sarah to the TSCA to join you all. And I look forward to spending a lot more time. I gained a lot of knowledge and just seeing how we all do this together in the just 24 hours I've been here. So I look forward to continuing this process. Thank you.
Can I echo something real quick? I want to echo, he said that, would you say 60% of the stores are run by Navajo women, or was it 100?
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be afraid to look in the unobvious places for great talent. They're out there. When I was with TA and Petro, I had 103 truck stops up and down the West Coast, and this is probably, 15 years ago. My vice president would always come to the West Coast and go on tours, and he'd get in the car and run him around and take him back to the airport. He'd say, "You got a lot of women working in these stores. What's going on here?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, these are truck stops." I said, "Yeah." "Aren't my numbers great?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "My turnover's low, right?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Margin's great, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." "So what's the issue?" You get on the plane and go back. Eventually, it turned out to be that, I had probably had a higher number, but my stores ran really great. So don't always think that it's got to be a certain gender to run the business.
Yeah.
You do find great people. So
I don't know it any other way. So,
what's up, Isaiah?
So the question is, what do they favor more, trust or talent when they're developing in new leadership roles? That's a good question.
simply put, I would say trust, because you can teach, you can generate talent. Yeah, yeah. If I can trust everybody, then I know we're doing what we're doing. The communication then goes both ways, and that's what we need in this. But again, margin. Just how do we do better? What's your idea? Share with me. Let's put it to task.
I wanted to stay a little bit on the talent pipeline. Can you guys describe in your stores what a management tree looks like? I'm just curious. Pretty sure a lot of other people want to know, like, what does your management tree look like? Manager, assistant manager. What do you have per store in your locations?
For us, we just modified our management tree. Our existing large store, the Mossy Shop, and our new Bond and Gunderson will have manager, assistant manager, and then 2 or 3 leads, depending on the products of the store. The Bond and Gunderson, we did put in a full kitchen, so I will have a kitchen manager position there. Our other 3 stores, the tobacco shop, we just run with a manager and 3 leads. And then the cashiers or attendants, we call them, underneath them.
I would say at the markets, our 3 larger stores, we 45, 50 employees at Frederickson, right? Camas, 50-ish. Lakewood, Yelm, they're about 40 employees deep, 35, 40. Well, we have a typical structure there: a manager, assistant manager, supervisors, and leads. But I think that depending on the scale of the business and how much you do, and Frank, you alluded to the kitchen. We have kitchen supervisors, but we are developing a new position that's kind of like a food service manager, and they'll be responsible for running around to our 5 delis and our coffee shops and quality control, training, menu planning, and things like that. Just to make sure that we keep everything on point. But I think the structure of your business is very important. If you don't have somebody there that can make a decision as to what Frank alluded, you're going to get a phone call in the middle of the night, and especially 24-hour operation folks. You know what I'm talking about, the 2 a.m. Hey, it's Adelia from the store. It's kind of slow in here. Can I go home early? And it's 2 a.m, and you just fell asleep. So, make sure you have the proper staff, like that. I know, like coming up with John and Isaiah and all these guys, we always got those phone calls in the middle of the night, and then we'd bitch about it the next morning, but it was our own fault because we didn't have the proper staff. So staff it up.
We have a conventional structure, I guess. There's myself up in the corporate office. We have a price book manager along with myself. We had a retail ops manager, but that position, we lost the individual in that position. Then I was told we're not filling it. Okay. And so it's myself and the price book manager in the corporate office. And then of course our managers across at the store line, each has an assistant manager. So we're open 16 hours a day. We don't have a 24-hour operation. I think we will with one of our new builds. So manager goes from opening shift the first 8 hours, and assistant manager second 8 hours. Depending on the size of the store, really, especially along the tourist route, we'll have a shift supervisor. So there's always somebody who can cover and knows how the process works to operate the store. It's not just, checking out customers, all the paperwork that's behind all of that. And then we have a crew of part-time employees at each store. So it's pretty well established. I wrestle a lot with turnover at the part-time level, and just again, look, how do I entice these folks to say that there's some of them are just there to get kind of unemployment, check boxes and stuff. I'm finding out, but some are there to actually provide for their families to the extent that they can. So how do I entice them with incentives to keep them there? And again, like I said, I raised our hourly rate. Ours is the highest of any of that level of pay, type of employment on the reservation. I raised our minimum wage beyond what the state level is a requirement, and again, McDonald's and Burger King and all that. So just whatever I can do to keep people there and provide as I say, a safe and secure workplace. I want a positive customer experience. I try to tell. I've learned so much more today than just our sessions today. I'm a novice at this compared to what's really going on here. So I can't wait to get back and try some more of this stuff. But anyway, that's how we're structured. Thanks.
Yeah, we got about 15 minutes. I was going to go to questions from the crowd. So then while we're up here, if you guys have any questions, we're going to go ahead and take some. I saw your hand go up first. The question is, she want to know that what do we feel is the optimal number of employees for a store?
So we have about 8 on average. I have so Navajo is 3 hours north of Phoenix, and I'm down in Phoenix quite a bit. And so you got Quick Stop, and you got Maverick. You go into some of these places, and I work with a consultant who's worked in this business forever, like 30 years. And I was asking him about this, and you look at Quick Stop, which is just highly successful. Now it's in an urban area, major urban area, 3 employees. And I look at mine, and man, if I could just, if I had 3 employees, what that compensation line item for operation expense how much we would save. But that's what I've seen, 3 employees. I'm comfortable with what we have right now. We're an oil company again, so we're less than 1% of our revenue generation within the Navajo Nation Oil Gas Company. So again, it's a little different animal than kind of, if we were a standalone operation as a C-store operation, I think we'd be running a lot differently than as we are, as again, just the third leg of a vertically integrated energy company, the downstream business unit. So anyway.
Yeah. How about everyone else? Frank?
Yeah, I think we do staff a little heavier than the industry averages. I remember the days with Circle K where we had 1 employee there when you open, the manager shows up, 8, 9 o'clock. And then you got another employee comes in when the first one goes off, and very limited staffing in there. A lot of times just 1 person in the store. And, but I think in the tribal community, we also consider giving the job opportunities to the tribal members. So we're willing to take on a little extra, and we look at it primarily as a safety and emergency status. If you got 1 person in the store and they trip and bump their head or cut themselves, and they need to get to the restroom to stop the bleeding, you got to have the second person there. So, we do run typically, we have our slowest volume store. We run 11 employees total, 14 at the next store. And then the Mossy runs 26 employees. And we'll be having 26 at the new store also. So, Yeah, the labor line item is, I think, higher than industry standards. But then again, with the cultural concerns, the safety concerns, that's something that we're willing to absorb.
I would agree with Frank. I also think that your question, it depends more on your business model and where you're located. I would tell you that you need as much as you need, without waste. But like Frank said too, you know, we also are a service to the community. There's nothing more that I like is seeing someone raise up that I can bring them up in the C-store, and you know, maybe they're a summer youth worker, you know, as a pump jockey out on the pumps, and next thing you know, they're a cashier, you know, and then we're making them into a supervisor. Those types of things that you know, that does good to my heart. So I like to see that. But I also think, like Frank said, there's a safety issue. And you know, I don't know the economic, you know, I guess procedures with the Navajo Nation, but for us in Washington, you know, we sell a lot of product. I mean, we have stores that are doing $60,000-$70,000 inside sales a day. We're pumping, you know, 25,000 gallons a day in fuel. So we're at the point where we're so busy that we have to have bodies. So we run, like I said, we have stores that have 50 employees. We're a 24-hour business. But we have to scale it sometimes too. When it slows down, we scale down through attrition and then, you know, build back up to get ready for the summer months. But again, I think you need as much as you need to run the business to make it successful. Again, if you don't have enough employees, then the coolers aren't getting stocked, the shelves aren't getting stocked, customer service fails, the cleanliness fails. You know, I'm a big person on clean and image. You know, so I think, like, where's Ernie? Did he go home? Oh, there he is. You got batteries left. Okay. As Ernie said, you know, the clean, bright image of the store, it's important, and people come back for that. I know when I lived in Utah, I was forced to live in Utah. Sorry, Ernie, for about 1.5 years. And I discovered Maverick when I was there, and I worked for TA. We had our own gas stations, like a lot of them, but I didn't go to mine. I went to theirs because it was cool. So, yeah. So yeah, I would say just make sure you have enough.
Working for Nisqually, I that's kind of, I started off early in my career, GM in Nisqually Markets, and I always thought to myself, why couldn't we ever run like a 7-Eleven where you have one person on shift? And you know, and our first big store, we had 35 employees, and I thought that was crazy for a convenience store that was open 24 hours a day. But then when we tried to scale that back, like Sam said, the shelves get empty, and then you're not selling anything because everything's empty, and the store doesn't look well. And then you're spending all that labor on bringing people in to stock your shelves. And I like he said, I think it's relative to like your business area where you're at. Our smaller stores don't have very many people, but our big stores, I mean, if they don't have 40 people on the payroll, it's interesting. It's like very, very chaotic. Like having 4 to 5 check stands open and 8 people deep is not uncommon in the Nisqually Markets.
And that's when the 2 a.m. phone calls come.
Yeah.
FYI.
Any more questions? I'll speak on the Nisqually side of it. So with the threat of EV and the ruck charge that I guess Washington in general is going to try and go to, which is a road usage charge, it hasn't deterred us, Nisqually, at all. We actually welcome it because the fuel tax is not going to go away. People are still going to pay fuel. It's a rebated back on the backside. So we don't look at it like we need to look at it any differently. We do look at implementing EV into our store footprints somewhere where we can fit it. All of our new growth definitely has EV in it. And then a lot of our sites now we're looking at converting to have just a couple EV spots in there just because there is a need for it. But every time I drive by an EV place, they look pretty empty. So I don't know how much of a need it is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was curious. Are you getting much use in Chehalis? with the Tesla chargers. I mean, they put 12 in. They were like, "Hey, we got to have this." Are you getting any? Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I guess the question that you had asked. Yeah, we're not afraid of that because, you know, they throw the ruck charge around like Tony was saying. But I mean, let's be honest. Are you going to plug an a sensor into your ODB in your car and drive around, and then report it, and then apply for a rebate, basically a tax refund from what you put in at the pump? It's not going to happen. But if it does, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think 6 or 8 months ago, maybe it was 8 months ago, Tesla literally fired all their field people that were like installing stations. So Shell walked away from it. Shell was huge on it. They said, "Hey, this is the next thing, and like we'll even give it to you," but they're pulling out. So
we got time for one more question if anyone's got one. The question is anyone using loyalty programs? And if so, does anyone use the ACH feature on it?
we're developing our app right now with liquid barcodes specifically for that. I can tell you before I left the Chehalis tribe, when we flipped everything to Sinclair, DinoPay, the DinoPay app, it's awesome. So if you have the ability to use that, definitely use that. I would suggest passing to the consumer a discount as well, because it's bank to bank, so you don't pay there's no credit card fees or anything like that. I left before I could get the data, but I'm pretty sure they're happy about it. And it works. So yeah, I would definitely push that.
Yeah, and Nisqually's doesn't use all those features yet, but we do use the loyalties that come with Shell, FRN, all those different networks. And we do have a loyalty program worked out with our casino, where we transfer casino points into fuel purchases.
Yeah, we're pretty much the same. We have 3 branded stations. So we use the Shell, the Chevron loyalty programs. And we also tie our casino points to the pump. So, getting a in-company loyalty card is something we've been looking at. And again, we want to tie all the businesses to that loyalty. Mm-hmm. So the problem is getting the data, sharing the data from, the casino servers, the golf course service, and the event center services. That's kind of been a challenge. So we're looking at how can we correlate all of those so that we have one card that can be used anywhere. I'm sure we're going to head that way as soon as we get that figured out.
So we have a long-standing loyalty program called Shibuddy. The Navajo word for my is Shibuddy. So Shibuddy. So Shibuddy, and I have a rental car. I'd normally pull out my keychain. I always have my little tag on there. But so we're branded. 3 of our stores are branded Chevron. The other are Navajo Petroleum, unbranded, our own brand. But we're converting 2 of those to 76. And then we're on the 2 new builds. We're in discussions with a number of providers as to who we will be branding with. It's kind of a nice little position to be in, kind of offering us all these upfront incentives to utilize their brand. This is going to be the one off of the main Interstate 40. But we're currently also transitioning from PDI Ascend, and that's just totally outdated. And basically, it's not obsolete, but it's outdated. And we're moving from PDI Ascend to PDI Enterprise, which also has a loyalty component to it that we can enhance our current program. So we're looking forward to really taking advantage of that. And when our branding system goes down for whatever reason, the customer, you hear it. And so we do have a good loyalty following, and we want to take advantage of what that has to offer from our side, from a marketing standpoint. What information are we going to be able to gain from this and start utilizing for, better customer foot traffic and better customer attraction? So anyway, yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone on the panel and for answering all the questions. I think it was very interesting.